what we're doing today is we're starting, which is really one of the main sessions. It's called the 7 Wonders of Jewish History. The 7 Wonders of Jewish History. One of the most powerful proofs that there's no way a human being read the Torah. And I'm just going to tell you what it says in general, how it works and how powerful it is, and then I'm going to take you through the whole presentation. It happens to be an excellent, just Jewish identity class as well. It just makes you feel it's a very feel-good class, because it makes you feel good to be a Yid. Yep. But it's also evidence that there's no way a human being read the Torah. I mean, it goes like this. We said, what would be evidence that a human didn't write the Torah? 2 main things. Claims that no human could make or would make. For example, the pig claim. To make the claim that the pig family is the only family on the face of the planet that has fully cloven hooves, doesn't chew the cud, human wouldn't make that claim. He doesn't benefit from making that claim, and he risks his whole book from making that claim. So that suggests to me that a human didn't make that claim. The other major thing is extraordinary predictions. Extraordinary predictions would suggest to me that a human being did not write this book. Why? Because human beings don't make extraordinary predictions in their book, because it's very, very, very unlikely to happen. That's why there are no extraordinary predictions in the Christian Bible, and there are no extraordinary predictions in the Quran, and there are no extraordinary predictions in the Bhagavad Gita or the Dhammapada or any other book. We don't make extraordinary predictions.
No other book?
No. The other books say kind of general things about a messianic figure, that type of thing, world peace and a messianic figure. So there is that, but not specific actual claims of anything particularly happening in the future. The Torah has 7 extraordinary predictions. This is just a fact. There are 7 extraordinary predictions. And it doesn't have 10, and I'm only showing you 7. There are 7. Some of them are repeated in many different places, but they're all under the one title of this extraordinary prediction. So we're going back into our human psychology of, would a human being have written this stuff in their book? I've got one really long hand. Would a human being write this stuff in their book? So human beings don't write extraordinary predictions because it's very unlikely to happen. So I'm just going to tell you the 7 extraordinary predictions and why it's crazy, and then I'm going to take you through the actual presentation as I do. One of the predictions says that we are going to be an eternal nation. Number one is we are going to be around forever. Our people are going to always be here. So let's imagine a man in the Middle East living 2,500 years ago, and he's making a book and he's starting a religion. What is he going to write in his book? He's going to write, do not kill, do not steal, have a day off a week, put black boxes on your arm and your head, shake leaves and lemons, eat matzah, stuff like that. Would he write in his book, we're going to be around forever, that will always be us? Our little tribe living in the Middle East are going to survive forever. Is that likely to happen? So looking back, we see it's very, 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 very deeply unlikely to happen. Why? Because there are no other nations from that time who are still around. You've never met a Canaanite or a Moabite or a Jebusite or a Hittite, Parasite, Gigabyte. You've never met an Amalekite. Even things like Aztecs and Incas, and very, very unlikely that your small random nation is going to be around. So it's an extraordinary claim to make. Is there a reason I might want to make that claim?
Credibility.
Absolutely, it looks really good. That's a wonderful claim, but it's very, very unlikely to happen. However, and by saying this, you're showing them that you're being honest. I'd still put it in my book. It's an extraordinary claim. It's very, very unlikely to happen. However, let's say there's no good. Pardon?
A win-win. No.
It's a win, not lose. It's not a win-win. It's a win, not lose. What does that mean? If I actually happen to be around 2,000 years later, that's great. That looks very good. But if it doesn't come true, I haven't lost anything because we're all dead.
Reading it anymore at that point.
Exactly. So, it's an extraordinary prediction, but a human being could still put it in his book because there's no risk to putting it in the book. Because if it doesn't come true, then you don't exist, so no one cares. Very, very important to share this piece of information because you're showing that you're actually being intellectually honest. You're saying, I'm cynical as well. I'm not just taking this at face value. It is an extraordinary prediction, but I'd still put it in my book. Because I just said, human beings don't make extraordinary predictions. And that is true in general, unless there's no risk to making that extraordinary prediction. If there's no risk, why not make an extraordinary prediction? That's pretty cool. So that's the first. Number one is we're going to be in eternal nature. Then I split the next 6 into 3 and 3. There are 3 negative predictions, and there are 3 positive predictions. This is how I present it. Are there any other nations that have been around for as long as the Jewish people? Absolutely.
Yes.
China,
So yes.
India, they've been around for 10,000 years. They've been around for a very, very long time. Just very quickly, now that I said 10,000 years, some people are going to freak out at that point, and they're going to say, but the universe is only 5,786 years ago. I wouldn't start getting distracted in the middle of a class to get to that discussion. So at that point you could say, there's a whole discussion about that, it's not a class, but just for you to know. It is possible that the universe was created 5,786 years ago. It's possible that the universe was created this morning. And everything in it was created this morning. We had that discussion already. But there's no reason for an Orthodox Jew to not hold by the universe being created 13.8 billion years ago as well. How does that work? The first 6 days of creation were not 6 24-hour periods. They were billions of years. Now, if you're actually very interested in this subject, there are 2 amazing books by Rabbi Gerhard Schroeder. One is called The Science of God, and the other is called Genesis and the Big Bang. And they're unbelievable. And you can look him up on YouTube. He's got videos on YouTube. He is a double PhD from MIT, friendly with, God bless you, friendly with a Nobel Prize winning physicist. He became religious, I believe, because of this stuff that he found out. And he actually made Antony Flew, who was the world's most famous atheist at the time, believe in God. He was like Sam Harris of his time, Antony Flew. And at the end of his life, he conceded that there has to be a God, really based on Gerhard Schroeder's work. Gerhard Schroeder. So I say to people, if you want to believe that the world was created 5,786 years ago and Hashem just planted dinosaur bones just to make it look really old, you can do that. That's okay. That's a fair enough thing to believe. I just don't know why Hashem would make it look 13.8 billion years old if it's only 5,700. What's the benefit of that? But people say, well, the Torah says 6 days. You can say the Torah says that God took us out of Egypt with a strong right hand, but clearly no one believes God had a strong right hand. So some things written in the Torah are metaphorical. That's okay. But this is a separate discussion. If you're really interested in that, check out Gerhard Schroeder's book. That's what I'll say in the middle of a class. If anyone starts bringing up stuff, I'm not going to get into a whole debate. I'll just say, check out Gerhard Schroeder's book. Amazing book. Yes.
See the same one that he made, like the Cheshbon from Tehillim, where it's like 1 second is like 1,000 years, and you can kind of add it up, and it gets very close to 13 billion or something.
Yes.
Rabbi, are these connected to 7 hours ago?
Definitely. There we go. So we see that there are other nations who have been around for 10,000 years. Many, at least as long as the Jewish people. They've been around. So what's so special about the Jewish people's survival? Japan, China, India, they've also
down
survived.
that they're going to survive forever.
But firstly, it wasn't written down that there was no prediction that they were going to do it. Yes?
They had their own land. They had their own kingdom that never fell.
Great. So basically, there are 3 main factors you're going to need to survive. There are 3 main factors you're going to need to survive. Number 1 main factor is you have your own land. If you're in your own land, then you're most likely, it would be hard not to survive if you have your own land. You might get conquered. It's true. But own land's very important. Number 2 is a large population. If you've got millions and millions and billions and billions of people, the bigger the population, the more likely you are to survive. And number 3 is peace, general peace. If you are at peace, like Japan has two of the three. Japan doesn't have a huge population, but it has its own land and peace. China has all three. India has all three. So there are, when it comes to India and China, you'd expect them to survive. And at this point, I'll show you the whole presentation, but we bring lots of quotations from non-Jewish people who look at the Jewish people and say our survival is supernatural. Blaise Pascal and Mark Twain and other people who say our survival is supernatural. Why is ours supernatural and China's survival is not supernatural? Because if you've got your own land, many people, and you're not, people don't hate you, you're not at war all the time, you're expected to survive. So the second of the seven wonders, the second major prediction, is that we're going to be exiled and scattered. Whoever wrote the Torah, at least 2,500 years ago, in the Middle East, makes the claim we are going to be exiled and scattered. We're going to get into our land, but then we're going to mess up. We're going to do a Avodah. And because we messed up, God is going to exile us and scatter us throughout the nation. What is any rational, reasonable reason that someone would write that in the book? Why are you writing in your book this crazy prediction? I'm going to tell you why it's crazy for three reasons, and you've got to really have these three reasons in your head. Number one, it's a negative prediction. It's a negative prediction. Most people, when creating a religion and a society, don't start it with saying negative things. Now, you might say this is to scare the nation. I'll talk about that in a second. Put stuff in the book that's going to get you to do what I tell you to do, because then I'll scare you into submission. But in general, the whole Torah is very negative. We said this before, that other religions don't start with negativity. So the Torah is really saying that Abraham made mistakes, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Moshe made a mistake, he hit the rock, and Aaron made a mistake, he made the golden calf, and the Jewish people are making mistakes all the time. We worship the golden calf and the spies, and basically it's a whole book. The Torah is a whole book about how bad the Jewish people are, actually. That goes against human psychology to start a religion. The foundational book of the religion is all about how bad we are and how often God wants to wipe us out. That's a very strange thing. No other religion does that. No one says bad things about Jesus or Muhammad or Krishna or anyone. Understood? So the first thing is negative. Negative prediction, strange to make negative prediction. Second one is extraordinary. If I put in my book, someone's going to break their leg. That's not extraordinary. I'd expect someone to break their leg. Exile is not actually very common in world history. Not very common. Most people back in the day would conquer people. So the Romans or the Greeks came into Israel. The Greeks didn't come and kick us all out. They Hellenized us. They made us Greek. They brought Greek culture into Israel, and they interbred with the women, and they tried to take over. So in general, what happens in natural history is empires and nations come and basically colonize that place. But to actually exile a nation, that's a very strange thing to do. Most people don't do that. The Assyrians did it to the 10 tribes, by the way. 10 tribes of northern Israel, which is really 9 tribes. Shimon was in the south. So I wouldn't expect to be exiled. So I'm putting in my book something that is very unlikely to happen. I'd expect to be conquered, maybe. Maybe I put in my book, we're going to get into our land and then we're going to be conquered. I'd expect to be conquered. But if I'm writing a book predicting our future, there's no reason to put this in your book. What do I gain by saying we're going to mess up and be exiled? Not only that, exiled and scattered. Being scattered throughout the world, that's not very, very good to keep your traditions alive. Some people want to say this was written after the first exile, the Babylonian exile. So whoever wrote the Torah wrote we're going to be exiled, trying to make the Torah look like it was written much earlier, and said we're going to be exiled. Firstly, there's 3 major problems with this. First major problem is that we weren't scattered at that point. We all went to Babylon and came back. And the Torah says you're going to be scattered. Scattering only happened after the second exile, which was the Roman exile. Second problem with that is that no one believes that the Torah was written that late. Even the biblical critics say the Torah was completed 2,500 years ago. Unless you want to say someone slipped something in later, but no one thinks that happened. And the third one is a whole separate thing we'll talk about later, is if the Torah was written at any later date, then it would have mentioned Jerusalem. We're going to talk about this a lot. Some people want to say that Ezra remade up the Torah. We're going to look into this claim. But that can't be possible because, and they say why? Because he wanted to establish Israel as the capital of the Jewish people, all of these things. The problem is the Torah doesn't mention the word Jerusalem, and if it was written at the time of Ezra, it would mention the word Jerusalem all the time. Jerusalem is our capital. I'm the king of Jerusalem. It's a separate point we are going to speak. So it's extraordinary. You don't expect exile. Exile, not expected. And the third problem with exile is that it's inconsistent with the claim that we're going to be an eternal nation, because no one's ever survived exile. Even the 10 tribes of northern Israel, they're called the lost tribes now, because it's very, very, very difficult to survive in exile. So you've said we're going to be an eternal nation, but then you knocked out the main factor you need to be an eternal nation, which is to have your land. So you said something that's unlikely to happen, but if it does happen, then you're not going to survive. Why is anyone writing that in their book? What do you gain by writing that in their book? You've now basically created a lose-lose situation. Either we are exiled, like the book says, which means we're probably not going to survive. Or we're not exiled, which means the book's not true. Nice. Number 3, the third wonder of Jewish history, which is number 2 of the negative one. Whoever wrote the Torah, at least 2,500 years ago in the Middle East, says that we're going to remain few in number. The Jewish people are going to be few in number. Now, we have a promise at the beginning of the Torah that says we're going to be large in number, like stars of the sky and sand on the sea. But then it says, you could have been like the stars in the sky and the sand in the sea, but you messed up, and therefore you're going to stay for your number now. Jewish people were, I've forgotten exactly what percentage, but a large percentage of the Roman Empire was Jewish. I think it was 10%,
Wow.
It was a large percentage. Jewish people are 0.2% of the world population now. This is also changed because we have a mitzvah. The first mitzvah in the Torah is Pru Ravu, to have lots of children. Average religious family has 6.7 children. Not sure what 0.7 of a child is exactly. Actually, Shimshon was born 3 months early. He was about 0.7 of a child. He's fine now. And the average secular family has 1.2 children. So
Jewish secular?
Yeah. If you have an ancient nation with a high birth rate, you'd expect to have a large population. In fact, if the Jews grew at the same rate as China, there would be 400 million Jews today. There should be 400 million Jews today.
Holocaust. Not better.
Well,
Well, what's this? The Holocaust. At the beginning of the Holocaust, there were 17 million Jews. 17 million Jews. At the end, there were 11 million Jews. Since the Holocaust, there hasn't been terrible anti-Semitism. It's rising again now, but not terrible anti-Semitism. The world population has increased by 3.5 times since 1945. That in itself is an awesome statistic. There are 3.5 times more people on the face of this ball of the earth than there were in 1945. Isn't that crazy? Therefore, if the Jewish people grew at the same rate as the rest of the world, just since 1945, there should be 11 times 3.5 Jews in the world, which is about 39 million Jews. But they're not, they're only 15 million.
What did you say, 11 what?
11 times 3.5.
Oh.
We didn't even double in our numbers. The world, and we're having more children still. So what's the actual natural explanation for that now is assimilation. 72% of American Jews marry non-Jews. That's going to not be good for your numbers. But someone writing a book 2,500 years ago isn't like looking back in history. I can tell you why we remain few in number. It's clear. There was the pogroms and the Spanish Inquisition and the Holocaust and the assimilation. There's loads of stuff happening. Looking back, looking forward in history. Yes.
But in all these cases, if it doesn't come true, let's say we become 40 million, we would just say
Jews
Okay, beautiful. How
Jews
do...
Jews did tshuva, and the bad predictions don't come true. Jews do tshuva. So we would just say, if they didn't come true, we would just say, no, we're still right. I think this is what someone would argue, no?
No, I thought you were going to say something else that someone argued is how do you say what's few in number? How do you define few in number? Which is a good
Keep a
question.
consistent number, that's one thing. But let's say it's shot to like 40 million, 50 million, or like the Jews weren't actually exiled, and they kept their place, whatever. We would just say, well, Jews did tshuva, and we have a principle of Jews do tshuva, bad prediction won't come true.
Yes, but it would mean that we would have to have done tshuva, which we haven't done for 2,000 years. But I guess if that factor and that factor and that factor. My answer to, by the way, what do you know few in, who defines few in number, is I'm not sure exactly what the definition of few in number is, but 0.2% is in that.
Wait, say again?
I say, like, at what point are you called few in number? So you might say, you might have 400 million Jews, and you say, no, but that's few in number. So everyone challenges me, and I say, I'm not sure what the boundary line is, but I know that 0.2% is few. Well, less than 1%, and that is few enough.
Like, you know 100%, it's 0.2%.
I know 100% that 0.2% is a few.
Saying
enough.
not. Not means dog in
Huh?
British English. I thought you were saying not like N-O-T. I know you. No, point. Yeah, not
No.
0.2.
Yeah,
Zero. Yeah,
not,
zero.
not,
That's what I
not,
meant, yeah.
not. Zero.
Uh-huh.
0.2%.
That was turning me off.
Got
That
zero.
was turning me off too.
0.2% is small in number, man.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. So we remained few in number. That's very, very, very bad for survival. If the whole of China was exiled, you'd expect them to survive. There's a Chinatown in London and a Chinatown in New York. Like, when you got billions of people, even if they get kicked off their land, you got so many people that you're going to keep your culture. You're going to keep. It's going to. But if you're exiled and scattered and few in number, you're going to be very difficult to survive that. Now there is one chance of survival. If a nation is exiled and scattered, like Tibet. The Tibetan people are exiled. They're not really scattered. They're all in northern India mainly. But they've survived. Now, obviously, it is only because they've been exiled for very few years. But what's the other secret to their survival?
Culture.
They are completely loved and accepted wherever they go. People love the Tibetan people. India's got a whole place for them. There's a Tibetan center in New York. So if your exiled, scattered, few in number nation is welcomed wholeheartedly wherever it arrives, then you can survive. But whoever the Torah said actually no, is the opposite. We're going to be the most hated people who ever walked the planet. We're going to be constantly persecuted and killed everywhere we go. We're going down. Why are you saying this? It's a negative.
Or says we're going to be hated, etc.
Yeah, got horrible, horrible predictions of what's going to happen to the Jewish people. And it really is the worst hatred known to mankind. Worst hatred known to mankind. It's universal everywhere we go. It's extreme everywhere we go. It's irrational. We're hated for being rich and we're hated for being poor. We're hated for assimilating. We're hated for keeping to ourselves. We're hated for being everything. Whatever we're doing, you'll find a way to hate it. And it's completely the opposite. It's irrational. We're called a genocidal nation when we were fighting people who said openly we want to kill every Jew. They were openly genocidal. That's in their constitution. White from the river to the sea, that is genocidal. Whereas we're you think we're genocidal? We're basically the greatest nation who ever walked the face of the planet. We're the worst genocidal nation in history. Like the Palestinian people have tripled in number for the last 50 years. All over, they're more and more. We lead the world in medical patents and space travel and agriculture and everything. We're pretty good at what we do. In terms of genocide, we're awful. Like the people we're meant to be wiping out, they're increasing in numbers hugely. This is just very bad. We're very bad. So we don't want to fight. You put down your weapons, give me my hostages, no one dies. The second you give me my hostages and you put down your weapons, I guarantee not one more Palestinian kid will die. That's it. The next day, You invaded what they did. And we're called genocide. That's crazy. It's my mission. Great. How about this? The blood libel. You heard of the blood libel? Jewish people use Christian blood to make matzah. Firstly, we don't need blood. Secondly, the matzah would be pink. So how can you even make that claim? It's just so weird. And get away with it. It's the most weird, irrational, crazy hate.
Where does that come from? What do we actually do? There's no relation with that?
No, they just they kill a Christian baby and blame the Jews, just pogrom.
They just stand.
Is this number 4?
Throw the Jew down the well.
Yeah.
Yes, it's number.
It's still 3?
Number
3, fewer
number
number.
4. It's 3 of the negative. It's the third one of the negative one. It's not fewer number. This is the next one, which is hatred, hatred and kill, persecution. Number 4, persecution, hatred, persecution. If you actually think about it, why do people hate us? We basically pray and make the economy good. What's hateful about? Like, we look like them as well. Now, I'm very against racism, but I can understand you hate black people. I can understand it because they're different. We basically look the same as well.
Not really.
Not really.
Big
Big nose.
The Sfardim is like, not really.
No, not really.
Again, not Sfardim. But in general, we're basically
People
kind
could
of...
usually tell like who's Jewish. For the
No,
most
you
part.
look Greek or whatever.
No, Jews can tell who looks
You look
Jewish.
Greek,
Yeah,
Italian.
don't worry. You could be Orthodox.
We're used to it.
No, with a
It's like saying Asian
Yeah,
is
no.
the same, but the Asian
Those are
can
the
tell
ones that
who's
they actually have
Japanese,
Yeah.
Korean, who's it's like that.
Anyway,
Yeah, we all look so different by the way.
so fine. I don't know why you hate us. We kind of pray a bit. We got our own little traditions and we help the economy and everything. We're really good. Why is everyone obsessed with us? I find it a huge compliment, by the way. The world is completely obsessed with this tiny little piece of land.
It's like
15
less
million
than 1%
people
of the
on a
population.
tiny little piece of land smaller than New Jersey. Obsessed. They can't stop. The UN's upset. Candice, who's talking about other people like this? And there are real genocides going on in the world. Real, actual genocides.
Yeah.
And real ethnic cleansing of the Jews, by the way. How many Jews used to live in Yemen, Iraq, Iran? The whole Arab world had hundreds of thousands of Jews. Now we got 0. That's called ethnic cleansing. And here the Arab population is increasing. And they're obsessed with us. I feel so good that they're so obsessed with us. It's so weird. Why? We're just nice. We're kind of nice. 22% of Nobel Prizes. You're so angry with us. Why? Because we helped you in everything. There was a non-Jewish. I got to find the video on YouTube. A non-Jewish Argentinian guy, I think, and he said you can boycott Israel, but then you can't use your phone, your medicine, your computer, your bed. You can't use anything for a tiny little country. We're going to get onto that. Fine. Next. So that's number 4. So now that's basically 3 strikes and you're out. 3 strikes. If you are actually exiled, few in number, and persecuted, you're not going to survive. No one ever has. No one's ever survived those conditions. That's why all these non-Jewish people have been like, it's miraculous. The survival of the Jewish people is actually miraculous, which proves that God's on our side. If you just look at the Jewish history, you don't look at the Torah, you just look at Jewish history, you're pretty sure that God's on our side. I think, how we survive. But the fact that someone wrote in a book that this was going to happen, and it did happen, is great. So now we've got these 3 strikes and you're out. Exiled, few in number, and hated. So now I've developed this book which says either we're going to be exiled, few in number, and hated, which means we can't survive. Survival would have to be supernatural. If the predictions in the book come true, survival would have to be supernatural. But if they don't come true, then the book is false. So you've now put something in your book that there's no advantage to putting it in your book. If it comes true, you're going to die. If it doesn't come true, you're wrong. There's a huge disadvantage to putting it in your book. You've set up a no-win situation. For no reason. You didn't gain anything by putting it in your book. What did you gain by putting this in your book? It's not a law. It's not a custom. It's not a meditation technique. They're not getting it. It's just weird. And you lose it. At this point, I say that there are gypsies. So gypsies, they're also few in number, and they're also hated, and they're also scattered. So it's not impossible to survive these factors. Not impossible. It's just very, very unlikely. Australian Aboriginals, they are scattered from their original land, and I think they're not greatly respected in society as much as they should be. I blame you, personally. And they're few in number. Native Americans are also scattered from their place, and they're not liked so much, I believe. Right. So there are other nations that are scattered, few in number, and hated. Here's my question. What impact have they had on civilization, on the world in general? What major impact, apart from casinos, I think it's very important, but what major impact have gypsies had on the world? Zero. Do you know why not? And I have nothing against gypsies, I mean, because if you're scattered, few in number, and hated, you can't have an impact on the world. Everyone's trying to kill you. No one likes you. So what impact are you going to have on the world? You persecute you the whole time. How is a nation that goes through the Spanish Inquisition and pogroms and the Holocaust going to actually have any impact on the world? You're just fighting for survival. Just trying to get a potato on the table. So if these three factors come true, exile, few in number, and hated, survival's very unlikely. But even if you do survive, you're just going to be a gypsy nation. You have these like those Jewish gypsy types. But whoever wrote the Torah, at least 2,500 years ago, said, no, we're actually going to be exiled, few in number, and hated, but we're going to be the greatest nation on the face of the earth. That's the most ludicrous thing to say. That's basically saying, the gypsies are going to be the most powerful, positively impactful people on the face of the planet. That's a crazy thing to say. How is that possible? If I'm going to be exiled, few in number, and hated, how is it possible that I'm actually going to have any impact on anyone ever? I'm probably going to die. But if I don't die, I'm just going to be scraping around for survival. And yet we see in the three areas. So what does it mean? Basically, I'll show you all the quotes from the Torah. It says you're going to be the greatest nation. It says in Isaiah, the prophet Yeshayahu, that we are going to, God bless you, a light unto the nation. At this point in the presentation, we also have lots of quotes from non-Jewish people who say that Jewish people are the greatest people. Winston Churchill says that you may some people like the Jews, some people hate them, but no one can doubt that they are, beyond question, the most formidable nation who ever walked the face of the planet. A lot of big, intelligent people say. So I think there are three areas. Morality. This is another proof of the Torah, by the way, which is that when the Torah came about, let's say 2,500 years ago at least, it was a complete paradigm shift in morality. In terms of tzedakah, in terms of education, in terms of taking away power from the leader. Imagine there's a leader, he's creating a new religion, he'd give himself authority, he'd give himself power and power to his kids to follow it. We don't hear about Moshe's kids. After they're born, Moshe kid not mentioned at all.
Even worse.
Even worse. So, we don't hear, so it's a complete paradigm shift in the whole of humanity, the Torah is. So all of modern morality is actually built on the Torah. Don't kill, don't steal, everything that we have in this world is built on the Torah. That's one thing. So morality really comes from the Torah. Then we have spirituality. Before the Torah came along, everyone's just like pagan, animalistic, spiritualistic, that. The whole idea of there is one God came from Abraham. Abraham brought that idea to the world. Maybe Zoroastrianism, people would say, but I think that was actually Abraham. Exactly the same time as Abraham. So the whole idea of one God comes from the Torah, so that's a light unto the nations. We brought God to the world. Who spread that the most is the Christians. I do give them credit. Who taught the world really about one God more than anyone else? Is Christians did a better job of being a light unto nations.
I thought the early Egyptians were monotheists.
The early Egyptians?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Can you find out about that and send me? Because that's very interesting.
Akhenaten, I think.
Rabbi, that's saying sounds
Okay, but
familiar.
even the early Egyptians, even the early Egyptians came. Did they came before or after Abraham? I'm not sure.
had like the Sphinx and this and that.
The thing, I don't know that, but I'm very.
I think
Please let me know. Let me know.
I think it's an ancient. They attribute an ancient like Babylonian civilization for having one god, but the truth is that there's like sub gods.
Oh,
I think I
will go with it.
could be wrong.
You'll
I could be
let me
wrong.
know.
Send him an email.
By the way, these two people noticed a very important educational technique, which I just used. Which, if anyone says something in the middle of your class like that, you could at that point panic and be like, "Well, no, Avram," and then you've lost the whole class. In that one moment, you lost the class. So if you don't have an answer, you do what I did. Oh wow, that's very interesting. Can you send me that? That's it. Which is true and honest and real and authentic. Don't try and start being like, no. Never get into a debate in the middle of a class. Doesn't work. You lost. Even if you win the debate, you lost. You lost. But you're wrong. Again. So, light unto the nations. And the third thing is civilization. Technology, civilization. 22% of Nobel Prizes from 0.2% of the world population is ridiculous. Medical patterns. And you've got to remember as well, you basically got a group of Holocaust survivors in a desert with no natural resources surrounded by enemies. What are you going to achieve in 80 years? You look, Israel's up there in NASDAQ and everything. That's supernatural. It's supernatural how much we've impacted the world through technology and civilization and patents and science institutes and water in the desert and solar panels and in every area of life. We're leading the world. So that contradicts the three other ones. Oh, very quickly. I'm very honest. Those three together, we're going to be exiled, few in number, and hated. They're actually internally consistent. Because if you are exiled, you're a foreign nation, so it's quite likely you'll be hated. It's not. So I admit that. I say that. Those three together, that could happen. If I'm exiled, then I'll be hated, and then there'll be anti-Semitism, and I'll be few in number. So those three do actually go together quite strongly. Internally consistent, but they contradict the things on either side of it. Unlikely you're going to survive, and unlikely you're going to be a light unto the nations. So yes, I admit, those three go together, Mazel Tov. But it doesn't go together with being a light unto the nations, or surviving. That's why I always ask people to ask questions at the end, because I say there's a whole picture we're creating. So you could break down this and try and explain any one of these on its own, and say, I can explain why you're a light unto the nations. It's because you value education. The Greeks also value education, but whatever, you value. I say, okay, but you're not looking at the whole picture. You're going to look at the whole picture altogether. It might be good but let's just finish quickly. Number 6 is my favorite one. Number 6 is actually supernatural. Everything else is extraordinary. Number 6 is supernatural. The Torah was completed 2,500 years ago, at which point Israel was a lush and fertile land. It was part of the Fertile Crescent, lush and fertile land. We know this historically, factually. There was agriculture all over the land of Israel, 2,500. Whoever wrote the Torah made this claim. When we are exiled from the land, which we are going to be exiled from the land is then going to become desolate. And our enemies who are on the land will not be able to do any farming. They'll not be able to create any civilization in our land. So that's a supernatural prediction. That's like saying that the land only responds to the Jews. When the Jews are here, the land is fertile. When we're not, it just closes down. And we've seen 2,000 years that the Romans and the Byzantines and the Ottomans, who were the empires at the time, there's no civilization here. There's an aqueduct in Caesarea. Nothing. There's a crusader castle up north, but there's no. It basically remained. It became a desert for 2,000 years. And you've got the greatest empires here. You got the rest of the Roman Empire was lush and fertile and amazing, and even London's got more Roman ruined stuff than Israel does. So the land we see factually, historically, basically, no one else could make anything happen here. There's no agriculture. There's nothing happening for 2,000 years. Whoever wrote the Torah said that was going to happen. It's like saying when the Native Americans are kicked off their land, that land will remain a desert all the time. It didn't. It became Manhattan. Really. Now Manhattan is uncivilized. But so you're literally saying that the land is conscious, and it just goes on strike when the Jewish people are there. I'm not going to let anyone else be on my land. And then the final one, number 7, is return. We're going to come back. We're going to come back. At the end of days, we're going to come back to our land. Now, this is very important that we have number 6, because if number 6 didn't happen, number 7 would be very difficult. If number 6 didn't happen, i.e. there was big nations in the land, so the Ottomans, they built a whole unbelievable nation in the land of Israel, then number 7 wouldn't really happen because we couldn't come back. We need number 6 to happen in order to come back. Do you understand that? Very important. If there's a big nation living in the land of Israel, how are we going to come back to the land of Israel? The only way we could really come back, even politically and whatever it was, that we came in, it was a desert. In 1890, I think the population of Israel was about 400,000 roaming Bedouins in a desert. There are over 800,000 people in Jerusalem today. You might think, oh, that's not so small, 400,000. It's very, very small, 400,000. Now there's 9 million people. 100 years later, 150 years later.
Do you know how many Jews are in Israel?
That's 7 million. I think there's 6 million. Something.
No, it became the majority of
I know, but how many Jews? Oh, so it's 7.5 million?
Like
I always thought it's cool that there are more than 6 million Jews in Israel. Make up for the 6 million. Anyway, so there we have a whole picture all together. So someone wrote a book 2,500 years ago with crazy, contradictory, negative predictions, supernatural, that each and every one of them happened. So there's no reason to put them in your book. And there's no way a human being, and no human being would think to put that in their book, and there's no way a human being could guarantee that it would come true. So you set up a lose-lose situation. Either they come true and we die, or they don't come true and I'm wrong. Yes.
Just have a few questions. Don't we know that, like, I don't know, like with October 7th and everything, we know that like when Jewish people are attacked, we come closer together and we get stronger. I feel like that's like part of human nature, that when we're exiled, when we're small number, when we're hated, it causes us to stay stronger in our identity. And therefore that would be a reason for us to stay stronger and live through the ages. And also we know that like in war, the most innovations come through. In World War II, so many innovations came through because even though we're fighting for our survival, we need to make innovations to fight for our survival. So that would be why we're making so many inventions. So it seems like it could be understood as reasons why it's not logical to say this, but it also makes a lot of sense, I think.
You're saying that I'm writing a book 2,500 years ago, and it makes sense for me to say these things are going to happen, because if they do happen, then it will make me strong. Like I'll come up with
Something like that, yeah.
But what if they don't happen?
Then nobody will know.
No, then my book's false.
Right, but we're gone forever, who cares?
No, we're not gone forever. I stayed in my land. I was never exiled. I became a great nation in my land. If they don't happen, then I don't get exiled. Then I just build an amazing nation for 2,000 years in my land, just like any other. Either way, it works. Yeah. Anyway, I want you to think of 3 or 4 questions. Ask ChatGPT. And next class, we'll go through all the questions, and I'll tell you the questions that I know come up a lot, and how to answer those.
Rabbi, really quick, can you just tell me what that thing is that you said I asked you that question?